Hello there, good morning and welcome to Claret and Booze. It's Tuesday the 7th of March and this is my daily ramble. My name is John, aka Virgil, and if you like the show then please hit the like button. If you haven't already done so then please subscribe to our YouTube channel at Claret and Booze, and if you hit the bell notification you will be advised as and when we go live or upload any shows. I look a bit tired. I do apologise. I had a very busy day in the cab yesterday, a very long day, I should say. So I'm a little bit tired this morning. But I thought I'd come on and you know, just have a bit of a waffle, bit of a ramble, as per the title of the show. My take on all things West Ham at the minute. I haven't really got any news, and I'm not going to do transfers, news and links and manager links and all that, because at the end of the day, at the moment, we are a little bit in limbo. And this is where I wanted to start. We know that West Ham over the years have been self-ordained the Academy of Football, the West Ham way, all of these terminologies to describe the club. And to some extent, we knew what we were. We knew at that time what we were as a club and where we were heading, which more often than not wasn't anywhere. But at least we knew what we stood for. And I've been thinking long and hard about it yesterday whilst at work. I think at the moment, the club, you know, I don't really know who we identify as or what we identify as. You know, can anyone tell me what is the club ethos anymore? Does anybody know what our chosen style of play is, apart from negative? You know, it's a difficult one at the minute, because you look around at clubs in the Premier League with us, clubs that, with all due respect, don't have the history or indeed don't have the top flight history that we have. But you know what they stand for. You can see clubs that have a style of play that they stick to. You see clubs that are run well, top to bottom. And you see clubs that, quite embarrassingly, are putting the way our club is run and our club overall to shame to some extent. Now, what I wanted to share with you briefly was this image that I found yesterday. I'm sure some of you would have seen it. But basically what this stat shows is how well two clubs in particular, as you can see there, top of the tree, Brentford and Brighton. Premier League pounds spent per point. So as you can see there, Brentford has spent per point just over 1.3 million. West Ham, unsurprisingly, are right down the bottom. Now, obviously, that goes without saying because we have got a very low point count. But we also, by our standards and by the Premier League standards, we spent a lot of money in the summer. Now, we did spend a lot of money, but, you know, as Nigel said the other day on our show, you know, it wasn't on one or two players. We bought 8 or 9 players with that money. But anyway, that's besides the point. So what does this stat tell you? Does this stat tell you that Brighton and Brentford are run well top to bottom? It does, 100%. Does it tell you that we are, in my opinion, being run a little bit haphazardly from top to bottom? We are being run without any real club ethos or understanding of where we're going, of where we're heading. There's no long-term plan. You know, the crap that Moyes come out with, or someone around the club come out with about we're going to follow the Red Bull mantra. I mean, we're not. We're never going to go down that road. If anything, if you look at Brighton, they, up to a point, followed the Red Bull model. You know, if you look at everything at Brighton, the way they are run puts us to shame. Okay? Their owner, Tony Bloom, been in the job a lot longer than I actually thought, but he saved them sort of 15 years ago or so. He knows what he's doing. He knows where he wants the club to go, and he knows how to get there along the way. Now, okay, you could say that Brighton have always, in recent years anyway, gone out, identified young talent from abroad, so they have a great scouting network, okay? They buy these players. They quite often send them back on loan. So, for example, the Argentinian midfielder who they have, whose name totally escapes me, McAllister, you know, they bought him a few years ago But he hasn't really come to the main until the last year, 18 months, because they bought him, but they allowed him to stay on loan back in Argentina to ply his trade and get more experience. But the point is, Brighton have quite rightly got a fantastic scouting network, a scouting network that we should be ashamed of in comparison to ours. We should envy the scouting network they have. Okay? You know, we know how limited our scouting network was until fairly recently. There's no excuse anymore. We should literally be looking down to the South Coast at their scouting network and unashamedly copying what they're doing, because the way they've gone about business has allowed Brighton to stabilise in the Premier League, and now they're looking to push on. So we know they always sold players, bought them fairly cheap and sold them on at a huge profit. Ben White, Trossard, Cucurella, to name but a few. Now it seems as though after stabilising the club and you know, cementing Brighton as a Premier League team, they don't have to sell anymore. You know, they've refused to sell Caicedo to Arsenal, and they've signed him up on a long-term deal. Now, okay, a long-term deal doesn't necessarily mean they can't sell him, but what it does mean is it protects their asset going forward. And if they don't get into Europe this season, which they are looking likely that they'll do, they can hang on to him. They've got no reason to sell. So Brighton may have, or I think personally, Brighton have had a long-term vision over the last few years. Get into the Premier League, stabilise as a Premier League team, sell players as and when you see fit. But most importantly, identify their replacements before those ones go out the door. You know? So if you think about every player they've sold, they've quickly replaced. Even if you go to the management system there, Graham Potter, people were worried. People were worried about him leaving and going to Chelsea. If anything, De Zerbi has made them even better. So there's always seems to be something, you know, there's always a plan in place with Brighton. So you know the club ethos year by year, you know where they're looking to go. And listen, when I look at West Ham, I just feel we're in an absolute piss poor situation once again. It's no surprise to me that we're possibly looking at Moyes leaving and getting another manager in, whether it's now, which I don't think it will be, or the end of the season. There's no stability in our club. There's no longevity in our club. And if you don't have foresight to plan for the future, you will always end up in very short cycles of team relative success in league positions and constant managements coming in and out the door. Sullivan and, rest in peace, Mr. Gold, have owned this club as long as the Brighton guy, Bloom, has owned theirs, there or thereabouts. We are treading water. We are going nowhere. We have reverted to type. We have gone back to being the West Ham, fighting relegation, fans against the ball, fans against the running of the club. Nothing has changed. We are exactly where we were pretty much all them years ago. Okay, we're financially better off, we're financially stronger. But if anything, our club ethos, our club, what we stand for, is drifting further and further away from me and the club. You know, the academy. We don't give youth a go. And you can say Moyes is to blame, but this has been the same for a long time now. How many youth players have we brought into the club that are, you know, that have become mainstays? Noble, Rice. But after that, you're clutching at straws. Ben Johnson may or may not go. Ben Johnson isn't playing particularly well, whatever you want to say. But that nonsense, in my opinion, of the academy, and I don't mean it disrespectfully to the boys of the 60s, 70s and 80s, because they quite definitely were. But we're not that anymore, because our youth system has been torn up in so much as there's no pathway. You can blame Moyes all you want, but this has been happening since Gold and Sullivan have been involved, in my honest opinion. In my honest opinion. How many youth team players do we get through the door that we sell on at a huge profit that other clubs actually want to break the bank and get? Very few. I mean, look what's happened this year with the selling off of some of our youngsters. Now, we know they may not have been good enough, but the problem I'm getting, the thing I'm alluding to here is that what are we anymore? You know, we went and spent 180 million in the summer, okay? Which is a lot of money for West Ham and a lot of money in general. But were those players we bought really bought with the current club style of play and ethos in mind? No, we were told that the style of play was going to be changed to suit the players we've brought in. That hasn't happened. That hasn't happened at all. And if you look at the stat that I put up at the beginning, if you look at the slide that I put up at the beginning of the Brighton and Brentford, you know, pounds spent per point, it's because they know what they're doing from top to bottom, buying in good young players from overseas, identifying players at the very least. We know what they stand for, but also they're getting good quality coaching. Now, moving on to the coaching side of things and the management side of things at West Ham, I read in The Guardian yesterday that David Moyes is facing growing dressing room content over West Ham tactics. That is the headline. And this is in yesterday's Guardian. So apparently David Moyes is facing a huge battle to appease growing discontent within the squad at West Ham United. Now, I'm not being funny. That comes as no surprise, especially after the 4-0 defeat at Brighton at the weekend. But as our season has been as a whole, the negative way that we are playing has become unbearable, not just for the fans, but probably for the players too. You know, the players we bought in, i.e. Paqueta, Scamacca, whoever else we bought, I can't even think now, Emerson, they're not players that are brought in to fight and sit back and be scared to take the game to teams. You know, we've been in the Premier League a long time now. Moyes doesn't have an idea. Moyes doesn't have, what's the word? He doesn't have the balls to take the game to other teams. Thomas Frank at Brentford, okay? I looked at Brentford's starting lineup last night in their 3-2 win at Fulham. A high percentage of their players that played last night were their same players that got them promoted from the Championship. But they are going toe-to-toe with the big heads of the football pyramid system in the Premier League. They have no fear. Do you know why? Because their manager has no fear. They do not, a lot of them players, technically on paper, have not got the right to be competing as well as they are with the Premier League big boys. You know, if they win their games in hand, they could go into fourth, Brentford. Let's not forget that last season they was in the Championship. But because Thomas Frank is fearless, he looks those players in the eyes and he's telling them, you go out, you are good enough, you compete, you give it your all. And if as a player you hear that from a manager, you have a manager that instills confidence in you, not only yourself as a person, but your ability as a player, you are going to have confidence. You are going to play for him. After the Brighton game, we heard Moyes' post-match interview, and I believe he said something along the lines of, we knew we wasn't going to get a lot of the ball today. He's basically admitting before matches, he's probably telling the players before matches, you're not going to get a lot of the ball today, guys. So, yeah, sit off them. You're not good enough to go toe-to-toe with them. You're not good enough to take the game to these teams. Imagine being a player going out on the pitch knowing that your manager doesn't think you have the ability to take the game to teams. It's no wonder that most of our squad, most of our team have lost Form. They've lost form because they have no confidence in their own ability, because their manager has no confidence in their own ability. Paqueta's a Brazilian World Cup star. You telling me he's not good enough to take the games to teams? You know, Thomas Soucek, he looks absolute nervous wreck. But these players are being told they're basically not good enough to take the game to others. What are we anymore? What are we anymore? Who are we anymore? We are West Ham United. The fans will always be there. But what does the club stand for? We have no identity. We have no ground that we own. We have no owners that have any longevity or foresight at all into what the club should become. And if anything, we are going to constantly go around in these 2 or 3 year cycles of managers coming in and out, because the type of managers that we are always going to go for are not long-term projects. We need to rip it all up and start again in the summer. It's going to be a huge shuffling of players, squad, management and ethos. We need coaches that coach. We need a manager who has the balls to stick by what they believe and not be cowardly. You could say that the dressing room discontent that we read about, or that I read about in yesterday's Guardian, has meant that Moyes changed his style somewhat against Forest, maybe against Manchester United, to try and appease the players in the squad who are becoming restless. You're a Premier League player because you deserve to be a Premier League player. If your manager doesn't think you're good enough, you are going to lose confidence. You are going to lose your form. It's not rocket science. I just wish that we had owners who understood football a bit more, who understood that the modern day club needs to have a structure and stick to it from top to bottom, from the academy, from the under nines all the way up through the academy into the first team. An ethos, a style of play, a system, a coaching system, a management style needs to be throughout, and it needs to be the DNA. I don't know what our DNA is anymore. Okay? Because you know why I don't know? Because the owners don't know. The manager doesn't know, and the players don't know. And I worry now that because we are in a relegation battle, which we are, the confidence is wearing even thinner and thinner amongst those players. Anyway, I've gone on longer than I anticipated, so I do apologise if I've waffled on and rambled on, but I'm really lost at the moment on what my club, your club, our club, what we actually stand for. I don't think we know. I don't think they know upstairs. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you like the video, please hit the like button. If you haven't already subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do. Claret and Booze, and don't forget to hit that bell notification. And if you've got any comments, any questions, please don't worry about putting them in the comment section. I'll try and reply to as many as I can throughout the day. Nick will be back at some point this week with a daily ramble. We'll probably do our pre-recorded Boozecast one day this week for release either Thursday or Friday. Thanks for watching. Gary's in America, moaning about the heat. I've been John. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it all. I'm going to go now for a swim. Have a good day, people. Come on, you irons.